All right, let's kick things off with a little bit of inspiration for our UPSC journey today, shall we? The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. And that, my friends, comes from the great Jimmy Johnson.
Words to live by, wouldn't you say? Especially when it comes to something as demanding as the UPSC exam.
Absolutely. It's that consistent effort, that dedication to staying on top of current affairs that can really make all the difference. It's your secret weapon, folks.
Couldn't agree more. So let's dive into some of those potentially extraordinary current affairs, shall we? March 3rd, 2025. What gems did this day bring us?
This is part one of our deep dives, by the way, specifically crafted for all you ambitious UPSC aspirants out there.
And remember, even if we touch upon something you've already encountered, consider this a fantastic chance to revise and really solidify that understanding.
Repetition is key, that's for sure. But hold on a second before we get started. If you're finding this helpful, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
Keep those UPSC insights coming.
All right, let's jump in. Something that really caught my eye was all the buzz around Giloy, or, as it's known in Sanskrit, Amrita, the herb of immortality.
Now, that's a name that's bound to pique the interest of any UPSC examiner, wouldn't you say?
It just screams UPSC question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not just the name. What I found really interesting is this surge of research interest around it.
Oh, absolutely. The data from PubMed shows a whopping 376.5% increase in publications on Giloy just in the last 10 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really is. The world seems to be waking up to its potential.
We all know it grows easily throughout India, right? It's readily available.
Very accessible.
Exactly. But it's this new research that's really intriguing. We're seeing studies exploring its potential in fighting cancer, autoimmune diseases, even inflammatory disorders.
Moving way beyond its traditional uses like managing fevers and gouty arthritis.
Precisely.
It really makes you think this humble herb, so deeply rooted in Ayurvedic tradition, could potentially revolutionize the global pharmaceutical landscape.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
If these research findings actually translate into viable treatments, well, the implications for healthcare accessibility, especially in developing countries, could be massive.
It's a bridge between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. Speaking of breakthroughs, have you heard about this new gene therapy for Maple Syrup Urine Disease, or MSUD for short?
Now, this is a rare genetic disorder, definitely something that could pop up on your exam somewhere.
It's a tricky one because it prevents the body from breaking down certain amino acids.
And then those amino acids build up, which can lead to some really serious neurological problems.
Right. I remember learning about this in my biology prep. It's inherited in an autosomal recessive pattern, right? But what always sticks in my mind is that very distinct symptom, the sweet, syrupy smell in the urine.
You're right. It's what gives the disease its name.
Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive. Something sweet being a warning sign for such a serious condition.
Absolutely. That unusual smell is often the first clue for doctors to make a diagnosis. And while the main treatment has always been a very strict low-protein diet,
Right.
this new gene therapy actually offers the potential for a cure. Imagine that the impact on families who've been struggling with MSUD for generations.
A glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep in mind for your UPSC prep. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit now. I want to talk about an event that really highlights the importance of understanding India's incredibly diverse cultural landscape. Did you hear about the Lok Sabha Speaker's address at the 286th birth anniversary celebration of Sant Solal Maharaj?
A revered figure in the Banjara community, wasn't he?
He was. And he's really well known for his social reforms and spiritual guidance.
He traveled all across India, serving nomadic tribes and forest dwellers.
That's right.
His use of Ayurveda and naturopathy to address healthcare needs is quite relevant to our earlier discussion about Giloy, wouldn't you say?
That's a really interesting connection. It's like we're seeing a recurring theme here. Traditional knowledge finding new relevance in the modern world. But tell me, what can you tell us about the Banjara community themselves? What makes the Lok Sabha speaker's presence at this event so significant?
Well, the Banjara community has a rich history and unique cultural practices. They are traditionally nomadic and they're spread throughout India, but have a particularly strong presence in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka.
Oh, I see.
And I think the speaker's address is really acknowledging their contributions to Indian society and highlighting, their evolving role in a rapidly changing India.
Right. It's a reminder that Understanding the specific needs and challenges of different communities is absolutely crucial for creating effective policies. Everything's connected.
Okay.
Speaking of fascinating discoveries, there's been some really exciting news from the Lankamalleswara Wildlife Sanctuary in Andhra Pradesh.
Ah, yes, the discovery of those rock shelters.
Exactly. The Geological Survey of India unearthed 3 rock shelters, and they're adorned with ancient paintings. Plus, they found 30 inscriptions.
Imagine that, tucked away within a wildlife sanctuary.
Right. It really adds a whole new layer to the sanctuary. It's like a hidden history waiting to be uncovered.
And it hints at this rich cultural and historical significance beyond its ecological value.
It paints this picture of a landscape intertwined with human history, right? Not just a pristine wilderness. But before we get lost in ancient mysteries, remind me, what makes the Lankamalleswara Wildlife Sanctuary ecologically significant in the first place?
Well, it's located in the Kadapa district and actually plays a vital role as a catchment for the Pennar River.
Ah,
The Telugu-Ganga Canal also flows through its eastern flank, you see.
right.
So it's incredibly important for the region's water security. And then you have the diversity of its forest types.
Tell me more.
It ranges from dry deciduous to thorn forests, even pockets of evergreen forests.
Wow, so it's not just one type of forest, but a whole mosaic of different ecosystems.
Precisely, creating a haven for a wide range of biodiversity.
That must be incredible for plant and animal life.
It is. You'll find rare and endangered plants there.
Like,
Red sanders and sandalwood, for instance, a whole variety of reptiles and amphibians, and even the endangered Jordan's courser.
really?
It's actually the only place this rare bird species is found. This sanctuary is its last refuge.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of the delicate balance we need to strike between conservation and development. All right, let's zoom out a little now from the very specific to the institutional.
Yeah.
I want to talk about an organization that's been shaping India's development for a staggering 175 years, the Geological Survey of India, or GSI.
Ah, the GSI. They're celebrating their 175th anniversary this year, which is quite a milestone, wouldn't you say?
175 years. That's older than many countries. I know they were originally set up to locate coal deposits, to fuel the expansion of the railway network back in the day. But what role do they play in today's India?
Their role has evolved considerably since those early days.
I can imagine.
Today, they act as this comprehensive repository of geoscientific information, you see,
Okay.
which is vital for all sorts of sectors.
I see.
They provide impartial expertise for policy decisions. They systematically document geological processes across the entire country, and they even play a crucial role in assessing mineral resources.
So they're like the Earth detectives of India.
Exactly. They're involved in everything from geological mapping and mineral exploration to disaster studies and research, which are all absolutely crucial for India's economic and industrial growth.
That's a lot to cover. And they have their headquarters in Kolkata, right?
They do, with 6 regional offices and state units in every single state.
So they really do cover a lot of ground. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into the key events of March 3rd, 2025.
Stay tuned, though. We've got plenty more to explore.
We'll be back with part 2 soon.
All right, ready for part 2 of our deep dive into today's most significant events.
Let's do it. We've got a lot more ground to cover.
We do, and it's all carefully curated with you, our dedicated UPSC aspirants, in mind. The more you know, the better prepared you are for those tough exam questions.
Absolutely. I'm always fascinated by how events in one corner of the world can have these ripple effects across the globe.
It's true, everything's connected.
It is. And today, I want to zoom in on the UK. There's the proposed bill there, the Digital Trade and Security Bill, that's causing quite a stir.
Ah, yes. This one has the potential to really reshape the digital landscape. Definitely something that could come up in your UPSC exam.
It really does seem like a game changer.
On the surface, it aims to simplify digital trade and boost cybersecurity, which, sounds pretty good, right?
I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. But, like always, it's the details that we need to pay attention to.
All right, I'm all ears. Break it down for me. What are the key provisions here, and what's all the controversy about?
Essentially, it's about streamlining those customs procedures for digital goods and services.
So think software, online subscriptions, data analytics, that sort of thing.
Exactly. The goal is to give the UK's digital economy a boost and make international trade in our increasingly digital world much smoother.
So less red tape, more efficiency. Sounds like a win for businesses.
Right. But the concerns, really, they revolve around data privacy and security.
Okay, I'm starting to see where the controversy comes in.
Critics argue that these sort of simplified procedures could actually compromise sensitive personal information.
Because it would be easier to transfer data across borders without adequate safeguards.
Exactly. And it raises that age-old question, are we sacrificing individual rights for economic gain?
Ah, the classic dilemma of progress versus privacy. It's a theme that comes up time and time again in UPSC, isn't it?
It certainly does. And then you have the bill's cybersecurity provisions, which are also raising a few eyebrows.
How so?
Well, the goal is to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks, which is obviously important.
Right.
But some argue that the bill gives the government excessive surveillance powers. It's all about finding that delicate balance between security and freedom.
It's a sticky situation, isn't it? No easy answers.
Definitely not. It really makes you think about how we navigate these incredibly complex trade-offs in a world that's becoming more and more reliant on digital technology.
It's a challenge for sure. All right, let's shift our focus back to India now. I've been hearing a lot about something called climate-smart villages.
Now, that's an interesting concept.
It is, isn't it? It sounds pretty futuristic. Are we talking high-tech farms? You know, with robots and drones and all that?
Not quite robots and drones, but definitely forward-thinking. It's more of a holistic approach, I'd say.
Okay, how so?
It's about integrating those climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies right into agricultural development.
So preparing for the impacts of climate change, but also doing what we can to reduce emissions.
Exactly. The goal is to help rural communities, equip them to manage those climate risks, but also improve livelihoods and really contribute to that overall environmental sustainability.
So it's not just about adopting new technology, it's about empowering communities to adapt to a changing climate.
Precisely.
What are some of the key elements of this approach?
Well, there are actually several. First off, you have promoting those sustainable agricultural practices, the ones that work with nature.
I see. So things like,
Think crop diversification, agroforestry, efficient irrigation, rainwater harvesting, all those practices that can really enhance soil health and water conservation.
it sounds like a pretty significant shift away from that, conventional resource-intensive agricultural model that we're so used to. But can it be economically viable for farmers?
That's where the second element comes in, improving market access.
Okay.
See, climate-smart agriculture often leads to higher quality, more diverse crops.
Right.
So it's about connecting farmers to those reliable markets so they can actually profit from these sustainable practices.
Creating a system where sustainability and profitability go hand in hand.
Precisely. And then the final piece of the puzzle is building community resilience.
I see. How does that work?
This includes things like social safety nets, insurance programs, and early warning systems for extreme weather events, to help them prepare.
Because climate change is unpredictable.
Exactly. It's about being ready for those unexpected shocks.
So we're talking sustainability, economic viability, and safeguarding livelihoods against climate shocks. It's a very comprehensive approach.
They did.
All right, let's switch gears again. This time, I want to talk about a recent summit that's got everyone talking the U.S. and China, two global powerhouses, and the stakes are always high.
Oh, absolutely. These two have been locked in this sort of tense rivalry for years now, so any high-level meeting between them is bound to make headlines.
It's a big deal. So tell me, what were the key takeaways? Did they manage to ease the friction at all?
It was a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest.
Wow.
There were some positive signs. Both sides, emphasized the need for dialogue and cooperation on things like climate change and global health security. They even agreed to set up these working groups to address specific areas of concern.
That sounds promising. I mean, dialogue's always a good thing, right? Especially when you're dealing with superpowers.
It is. It's a start, at least. But of course, there were those inevitable sticking points.
Such as?
Taiwan, for one. That issue remains a major flashpoint. The U.S. reaffirmed its commitment to Taiwan's defense, while China reiterated its stance on reunification.
Right.
And then there are the disagreements on things like trade practices, human rights, and the South China Sea, which continue to simmer beneath the surface.
So a glimmer of hope, maybe, but those underlying tensions, they're still very much alive.
Oh, absolutely. This U.S.-China relationship, it's a geopolitical chess match.
And understanding its complexities is crucial for UPSC.
It is.
Okay, let's change direction a little bit now. I've been noticing a really interesting trend here in India, this revival of traditional art forms.
It's true. You see it everywhere.
I do. From classical dance and folk music to those ancient crafts, there's a renewed appreciation for India's incredibly rich cultural heritage. Why do you think that is? Is it, a reaction to globalization or a longing for something authentic in this increasingly digital age?
I think it's probably a combination of factors.
Okay.
Globalization has definitely made people more aware of their own cultural identities.
Right.
And I think there's also this growing understanding of the intrinsic value of these art forms. They're not just entertainment, they're expressions of history, spirituality, community.
That's like a rediscovery of our roots.
Exactly. And social media platforms have definitely played a role.
Oh, absolutely.
Platforms like YouTube and Instagram, they're giving artists a global stage, allowing them to connect with new audiences and really showcase their talents.
It's incredible, isn't it, how technology can be used to preserve and promote traditional art forms.
It is, and it's not just about preserving the past. It's about reinterpreting and reimagining these art forms for contemporary audiences.
So it's a dynamic interplay between tradition and innovation. It's a theme we've seen pop up a few times already in this episode.
We have, and this revival, it's not just a cultural trend, it's an economic opportunity.
Oh, that's an important point.
It is. It provides livelihoods for millions of artisans and performers across India.
So supporting these traditional industries, it's not just about cultural preservation, it's about economic empowerment as well.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation.
It is. All right, I want to touch upon a topic that's both fascinating and a bit unnerving, to be honest. The rise of artificial intelligence, or AI, as we all call it now.
It's transforming our world at an incredible pace.
It is. From self-driving cars to personalized medicine, even to the algorithms that are shaping our online experiences, AI is everywhere.
And it's only going to become more pervasive.
That's right. It feels like we're standing at a crossroads, excited by AI's potential, but also a bit apprehensive about the unintended consequences. What are some of the key ethical concerns that we really need to address?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the potential for AI to actually worsen existing inequalities.
Oh, I see.
If these AI systems are trained on biased data, they can actually perpetuate those biases,
Okay.
leading to unfair outcomes in areas like hiring, lending, or even criminal justice.
It's a real concern.
It is. We need to make sure AI development is guided by ethical principles that prioritize fairness and inclusivity.
It's about using AI to bridge the gap, not widen it.
Exactly. And then there's job displacement, which is another major concern.
Of course.
As AI systems become more capable, they're going to be able to automate tasks that were previously done by humans.
Right.
So we need to think about how we're going to prepare our workforce for the jobs of the future.
It's a technological revolution, and we need to manage this transition carefully.
We do. And then, of course, we also need to be wary of AI being used for harmful purposes.
Oh, absolutely. Like what?
Think developing autonomous weapons or creating those deepfakes that can spread misinformation. The technology itself might be neutral, but it's up to us, our responsibility, to guide its development in a direction that actually benefits humanity.
So we can't just focus on the technological advancements. We need to have those open discussions about the ethical considerations and potential risks of AI.
We do. Responsible innovation is key.
It is.
We need to make sure that AI is used to enhance human capabilities, not diminish them.
That's a great point to end on. Well, we've covered a really wide range of topics in this part of our deep dive. Global issues, trends shaping India's present and future, from that UK digital trade and security bill and climate-smart villages to the delicate U.S.-China relationship and the resurgence of traditional Indian art forms, all the way to AI and its ethical implications. It's been quite a journey.
And remember, this is just a taste of what's out there in the vast world of current affairs. We'll be back with part 3 shortly. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. Still with us.
Let's wrap things up with a few more crucial topics for our dedicated UPSC aspirants, shall we?
Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. Every insight, every piece of information you pick up here, you could give you that extra edge you need in the exam. Speaking of game changers, I keep hearing about these things called green bonds. What are they all about?
Green bonds, well, think of them as debt securities, but with a purpose.
The purpose.
Yeah, they're designed specifically to finance projects that have a positive environmental impact.
Oh, I see.
Renewable energy projects, energy efficiency upgrades, sustainable transport, clean water initiatives, you name it. Anything that's good for the planet.
So you're basically investing with an environmental conscience.
Exactly. You get a financial return, but you're also contributing to a greener world.
I like it. So how does this work in practice? Who issues these bonds and who invests in them?
It's actually quite a diverse group. You have Governments, corporations, even municipalities, international development banks. And on the investor side, you have institutional investors, pension funds, even individuals who want their investments to align with their values.
So it's a win-win situation. Investors get a return, and the planet benefits from the projects being financed.
Precisely.
Do you think this is just a passing trend, or is there something more fundamental going on here?
I'm inclined to think it's a deeper shift, actually. There's a growing awareness of the urgency of climate change, the need for a more sustainable way of doing things.
And investors are realizing that ignoring environmental risks, well, it can be a risky financial move.
Exactly. Green bonds offer a way to manage those risks and be part of the solution rather than contributing to the problem.
It's not just about doing good, it's about smart investing.
Yeah.
But are there challenges in this market? I mean, it's relatively new, isn't it?
It is. Transparency and accountability, those are big ones.
Right, of course.
Making sure the funds are actually used for what they're intended for and that they deliver those promised environmental benefits. We need strong standards and verification mechanisms to prevent greenwashing, basically. And then there's the issue of scaling up, Meeting that growing demand for green investments, that's another challenge.
Like any new sector, it needs the right regulations and frameworks to grow sustainably.
Absolutely.
All right, let's turn our attention to a region that's been in the news a lot lately, the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yes. Always a geopolitical hotspot, isn't it?
It is. It feels like things have been particularly tense lately.
They have. It's a complicated situation, to be honest.
I can imagine.
A mix of historical grievances, territorial disputes, energy rivalries. You've got Greece, Turkey, Cyprus, Egypt, Israel, even external powers like the US and Russia all involved.
It sounds incredibly volatile.
It is. And for UPSC, understanding the intricacies of this conflict, well, it's essential.
So what are the main points of contention here? And what could happen if this conflict continues to escalate?
Well, one of the biggest flashpoints is that dispute over maritime boundaries,
Yeah.
the exclusive economic zones in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Because of the natural gas reserves, right?
Exactly. There are some significant reserves there, and several countries are competing for control.
A valuable resource.
And then, of course, you have the long-standing division of Cyprus, with Turkish troops still present in the north. It adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
So we have this mix of resource competition and unresolved historical tensions. What are the potential outcomes here? Paint me a picture. What could happen?
Well, ideally, all parties come to the table and engage in dialogue, right? Find a peaceful resolution through compromise and diplomacy.
That's what we all hope for.
But it would require respecting international law and a genuine willingness to find common ground.
A tall order, perhaps, but what about the less optimistic scenarios?
Well, the alternative is military confrontation, which frankly would be disastrous for everyone involved.
It doesn't bear thinking about.
No, it doesn't. It could lead to, well, who knows how many lives lost, economic devastation, and it could even draw in those external powers we talked about, further destabilizing the whole region.
And potentially even sparking a wider conflict.
Exactly. It's a reminder of how fragile peace can be and how quickly things can spiral out of control.
So what can the international community do to prevent things from escalating further?
Well, active diplomacy is key. Encouraging those open channels of communication, facilitating negotiations, promoting adherence to international law, that's got to be the priority. But it's also about addressing those root causes of the conflict.
Right.
Finding those equitable solutions for sharing resources, working towards resolving those long-standing grievances. It's a long and complex process.
A delicate dance. It sounds like it.
It is.
Okay, let's finish up by revisiting a topic we touched upon earlier. Artificial intelligence. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Full of potential, but with some significant risks as well.
It is. It's advancing so rapidly, transforming every aspect of our lives.
It feels like we're at a turning point, doesn't it? Excited by what AI can do, but also wary of the potential downsides.
It's crucial that we think about these things proactively.
What are some of the key ethical and societal considerations we need to address as AI becomes even more integrated into our lives?
One that's top of mind for many is its potential to worsen existing inequalities.
Right, because if it's trained on biased data.
Exactly. If the data is biased, the system will be biased.
And that leads to
unfair outcomes in things like hiring, loan applications, even criminal justice.
We need to be very careful about
We
that.
do. We need to make sure AI development is guided by those ethical principles that promote fairness, inclusivity for everyone.
So it's about making sure AI doesn't become a tool for amplifying those existing societal problems. Are there any other potential pitfalls we need to be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. Job displacement is a big one.
Because as AI systems become more sophisticated,
They'll be able to automate a lot of the tasks currently being done by humans, which could lead to significant job losses in certain sectors.
so it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we manage this transition.
Precisely. We need to be thinking about how we prepare our workforce for the jobs of the future.
Right, equipping people with the skills they need to thrive in this new landscape.
Exactly. And then there's the potential for malicious use, which we can't ignore.
The dark side of AI.
Right. Think about things like autonomous weapons or using AI to create those incredibly realistic deepfakes, the ones that are used to spread misinformation and sow discord.
It's a sobering thought.
It is. So yes, AI is incredibly powerful, but it's up to us to steer it in the right direction.
It's our responsibility to make sure that it's used ethically and for the benefit of all.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this final part of our deep dive. From those innovative green bonds to the complexities of the Eastern Mediterranean conflict and the ethical considerations surrounding artificial intelligence, it's been quite a journey through current affairs. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
It certainly is. There's always something new to learn, something to think about, something to discuss.
And as you continue your UPSC preparation, remember, it's not just about memorizing facts and figures. It's about developing that deep understanding of the world around us.
It's about connecting the dots.
Exactly. It's about seeing those links between seemingly unrelated events and really thinking critically about the implications.
That's what sets successful UPSC aspirants apart.
It does. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep pushing yourselves, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the deep dive for your daily dose of current affairs analysis. We'll see you next time. Best of luck on your UPSC journey.